Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something that creates, I think, a huge amount of anxiety for so many women in midlife. Menopause, brain fog.
Hmm.
And this isn't just, a bit of forgetfulness. We're talking about this really profound, frustrating feeling of losing my edge.
Yeah, or thinking through mud. I hear that one a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you've been managing a complex career, a busy life, and then suddenly you can't recall a word in a meeting, the fear it skyrockets. You
Yeah.
start to worry, is this weakness? Or even worse, is this early dementia?
And that right there is the fear we want to neutralize today. Our whole mission in this deep dive is grounded in the neurological research. We're here to show you that this is a hormone-driven neurological change. It is
Okay.
not a psychological fault, and I think most critically, it's a temporary challenge. It is not a permanent destination.
Absolutely. So we've pulled from a lot of research that really explains the science here, why hormones have such a grip on our focus and memory, and then what the most actionable strategies are for getting through it.
Yeah.
This is really about getting the facts so you can stop fearing the symptoms and start, managing the biology.
Precisely. Understanding the why is the first step toward regaining that feeling of control.
Okay, so let's start with a clear definition. When women describe this menopause brain fog, what are they actually experiencing? What are the symptoms?
It's really a cluster of cognitive symptoms, and they're very concentrated during perimenopause and, early menopause. The intensity can vary, but the symptoms themselves are really specific.
I'm guessing the classic one is that verbal retrieval issue.
Spot on.
You know the word, you can almost see it, but you just can't pull it out in the moment, that tip of the tongue feeling.
That is number one.
Yeah.
And it's coupled with a real difficulty concentrating, trouble staying organized, and finding it much harder to multitask, which is a huge shift for so many women.
And just feeling slower, right? Like your processing speed is just dropped.
A pervasive feeling of slower processing speed. Yeah. These aren't minor things. They're genuinely disruptive to how you think.
What's interesting is that those symptoms, the distractibility, the slower processing, they can feel a lot like other things, like anxiety or even adult onset ADHD.
And that similarity is exactly why the anxiety spikes. Your brain is just trying to make sense of a system that suddenly feels unreliable.
Right.
But here's the crucial thing that all the research supports. Menopause brain fog is transitional. It peaks when hormones are most volatile, and then it generally starts to improve significantly once those hormones stabilize in postmenopause.
That's such a critical point. Transitional, not permanent. But that brings us to the big question, doesn't it? Why on earth does a reproductive hormone, like estrogen, have such a powerful effect on our ability to think?
That is the perfect question, because estrogen isn't just for reproduction, it's fundamentally a major cognitive hormone.
Okay.
To help visualize its role, a lot of researchers describe it as acting like a neural fertilizer.
But neural fertilizer, I like that. Implies, growth, maintenance, keeping everything healthy.
Exactly. It's involved in keeping the entire brain environment efficient. When estrogen is stable, it influences pretty much everything. Neurotransmitter activity, blood flow to the brain, memory formation,
So things like serotonin and dopamine.
serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine, yeah. And critically, how efficiently your neurons can use energy.
So when the fertilizer supply gets erratic, is the brain actually shrinking? Or is this more of an efficiency problem?
It's overwhelmingly a functional efficiency problem. It's not that the neurons are dying. It's that the supportive chemicals they need for fast, smooth communication are suddenly unreliable.
I see.
When estrogen is stable, everything's communicating smoothly. When it starts to fluctuate or decline, the connections get a little less robust, the signaling slows down, and that is the neurological experience of the fog.
And this is where it gets so interesting because perimenopause isn't a gentle, steady decline.
Yeah.
It's defined by intense hormonal instability. It is a true roller coaster.
A radical roller coaster. I mean, we see estrogen levels spiking higher than they were in a woman's 20s, and then the next month, they can crash to almost nothing.
And the brain is just constantly trying to adapt to that.
Constantly, and that adaptation is incredibly exhausting. Think of it like your brain's operating system having to do an emergency reboot every few weeks. All that energy goes into just trying to stabilize.
Which leaves less energy for everything else, like focus and planning.
Exactly. Less energy is available for executive function.
And it's not just estrogen causing all this noise, is it? There are other factors.
Not at all. You also have low progesterone, which is critical for sleep because it affects GABA, the brain's main calming signal.
Okay, so less progesterone means more anxiety and worse sleep.
Yes. Then you throw in high cortisol because we become more sensitive to stress in midlife, plus blood sugar instability, maybe some thyroid changes. It all just piles on top of the estrogen swings.
So let's connect those fluctuations to the specific things women are feeling. We started with the word retrieval issue.
Right. That links directly to the hippocampus. It's the brain's memory center, and it is just saturated with estrogen receptors. So when estrogen fluctuates, the speed and accuracy of retrieving a word it diminishes. Your short-term memory feels unreliable. But that's a feature of the fluctuation, not a sign that the memory itself is gone forever.
And what about the focus problems, that feeling of suddenly having an attention deficit?
That points right to dopamine. Estrogen is a major player in regulating dopamine, which is, the neurotransmitter for motivation and focus.
I see.
When estrogen is unstable, dopamine signaling suffers.
Yeah.
So you feel distracted, your mental stamina is lower, and focusing becomes a real battle.
Then there's that general sluggishness, the
Yeah.
feeling that your brain is just slower. Is that different from the retrieval problem?
It's a different mechanism, yeah. That's about processing speed. Reduced estrogen can actually impair blood flow and glucose metabolism in the brain.
So the brain is literally getting less fuel.
Less of its preferred fuel, glucose, and less efficient oxygen delivery. So thinking just takes more effort. Problem solving feels like walking through sand. And multitasking becomes completely overwhelming.
And of course, we can't forget the emotional side. Because when you're feeling more anxious or irritable, it's impossible to think clearly.
It destroys executive function. Estrogen helps regulate serotonin and GABA, so when it's fluctuating, anxiety goes up, emotional resilience goes down, and your stress response is on a hair trigger.
You're in high alert mode.
Exactly. And you simply cannot maintain focus if your emotional baseline is set to high alert.
Speaking of high alert, let's talk about the things that can make this fog so much worse. The research seems to point to one factor above all others.
Sleep.
Sleep.
Sleep disruption is probably the single strongest predictor of how bad your cognitive issues will be during this transition. You've got hot flashes waking you up, night sweats, but also just anxiety-related insomnia.
And if you were already sleep deprived going into perimenopause.
Oh, it compounds it dramatically. The brain needs deep sleep to clean house, to clear out metabolic waste. When that's impaired for years, the fog just gets thicker and the fatigue gets heavier. Improving sleep isn't optional, it's the foundation.
Okay, what about the metabolic link? You mentioned the brain's fuel source.
Yes, blood sugar. Estrogen helps the body use insulin properly, so when estrogen drops, you become more prone to insulin resistance.
Meaning more blood sugar spikes and crashes.
Exactly. And when sugar crashes, your brain experiences a temporary energy crisis. That leads to that profound fatigue and poor focus. Stable glucose equals stable cognition. It's that direct.
And then, of course, there's stress, the high cortisol.
Right. Women in their 40s and 50s are often in that sandwich generation, peak career, family stress, and then this biological stress on top.
And you become more sensitive to it.
Profoundly more sensitive.
Yeah.
And chronic high cortisol directly impairs the hippocampus. Your working memory and executive function suffer the most. Stress just amplifies every single aspect of the brain fog.
Okay, we have laid out the science, the symptoms, all the compounding factors. We absolutely have to address the listener's biggest fear head on. Is this dementia?
We have to be really strong on this. No. Menopause brain fog is a temporary physiological event.
It peaks.
It peaks in perimenopause, and the research is very clear that it improves and resolves, 1 to 2 years after menopause when the body adapts. It does not predict long-term cognitive decline for the vast majority of women.
But I imagine there is a line, right? Some symptoms that should be checked out no matter what.
Yes, absolutely. If you are getting lost in familiar places, forgetting major life events, or having a fundamental personality change, those are red flags that require immediate medical evaluation.
Got it.
But for the vast majority of us dealing with word retrieval and that mental sluggishness, we're dealing with a temporary biological shift.
So let's pivot to the solutions. What does the actionable roadmap look like?
Right.
What can women start doing right now?
The good news is that because these are functional issues, they are highly treatable. And we start with that foundational intervention we already mentioned. You have to dramatically improve sleep quality.
How do we get more specific than just try to sleep better?
It's about structure, a consistent bedtime, making the bedroom cool to help with night sweats, and critically, no screens for at least 90 minutes before bed. That blue light just kills your melatonin production.
All right.
And supplements like magnesium glycinate can be really helpful for supporting that calming GABA function. Sleep is truly the #1 lever to pull.
Okay, next up is movement. And you specifically call out strength training. Why lifting weights over just doing cardio?
That's such a critical distinction. Cardio is great, but strength training is superior for metabolic health, which is a direct cause of the fog.
Not so.
When you build muscle, it acts like a storage tank for glucose. It improves insulin sensitivity more than cardio does, so it directly fights that blood sugar instability. It also reduces inflammation and boosts protective growth factors in the brain.
So aiming for, say, 2 to 4 sessions a week to build and maintain muscle is a way to keep the brain fueled and stable.
Precisely. It's a physical solution for a chemical problem.
Beyond lifting, what about on our plates? What does nutrition for clarity look like?
It means prioritizing high protein at every meal to stabilize that blood sugar, getting enough omega-3s for brain structure and to lower inflammation, lots of cruciferous vegetables for liver health to help process hormones.
And I'm guessing cutting way back on sugar.
You have to drastically minimize refined sugar to avoid those debilitating glucose spikes and crashes.
Which brings us to stress regulation. This feels like it has to be a daily, non-negotiable practice.
It has to be an intentional daily practice. You can't eliminate stress, but you can regulate your response to it. Simple things: walking, yoga, breath work, meditation.
What about things like light exposure?
Getting morning sunlight is huge. It helps set your circadian rhythm and regulate cortisol. And for many, strategically reducing caffeine is necessary because it can just pour gasoline on that anxiety fire.
And finally, let's touch on hormonal support for when lifestyle isn't quite enough.
Clinical intervention is very personalized, but it can provide huge relief. This might mean progesterone to help with sleep, or estrogen therapy HRT to restore that neural fertilizer,
Right.
or even just aggressively managing things like insulin resistance or thyroid issues. These are powerful tools for managing the more severe symptoms.
This has been so incredibly reassuring. I mean, the big takeaway here is that menopause brain fog is a normal, temporary thing. Women are not losing their minds.
Not at all.
They're navigating a major biological and neurological transition.
And the brain is a remarkable adaptive organ. The research shows that clarity and cognitive strength do return, usually within 1 to 3 years post-menopause, as the brain learns to work efficiently in its new state.
So if estrogen acts as this powerful neural fertilizer and its withdrawal causes all this disruption, what does the fact that the brain recovers tell us about its resilience?
Well, it tells us everything, doesn't it? If the female brain can regain clarity after navigating such an intense, years-long hormonal withdrawal, a shift that fundamentally alters its chemical environment,
Yeah.
it is just proof of extraordinary resilience and plasticity. It confirms the brain is not some static thing, but a dynamic, survival-focused machine capable of profound adaptation under extreme stress. And that, I think, is a pretty powerful thought to carry forward.